Nobody, and I mean nobody, should be picking Ole Miss to do anything in the SEC for 2025, especially after the self-implosion of 2024. The Rebels last year were built to win a national title. They had a roster good enough to go on a 4-game stretch and compete with anybody, and they proceeded to lose to Kentucky at home, lose to LSU despite never trailing in that game, revitalizing themselves in a win against Georgia, and still shooting itself in the foot at the 1-yard line against Florida in the Swamp. Nobody should be picking Ole Miss to do anything this year, which is why exactly Ole Miss is going to do something this year, because it's the perfect Lane Kiffin analogy. But they're going to have these 3 bold predictions to make that come true. So let's break it all down. Welcome on into SEC Unfiltered. It's Cole Thompson here. Like the video, hit the ring notification. Rebel Nation, you know you love us, so why don't you go ahead and hit subscribe, because we're talking Ole Miss football and college football every single day on the channel. Make sure that also you download the podcast version of the show. Follow us on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson and SEC Unfiltered, and check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. And as always, we're proudly fueled by our friends over at FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com/SECU. Join today and get started with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. So if you believe Austin Simmons is going to be the Heisman Trophy winner, you think the over is going to hit for Ole Miss, make sure that you go ahead and lay down some cash at SECU, FanDuel.com/SECU. Bold prediction time. So these are bold, which means when I'm right, you come back here and say, Cole Thompson was the very first person to tell us it. And when I'm wrong, you say, hey, you know what? It was a bold prediction. It wasn't supposed to come true anyways. Number 1, I believe that Ole Miss is going to have tight end number 1 in the country. And it's not Daquan Wright. No, it's Luke Haas. See, Luke Haas was a talented specimen when he was at Arkansas. Many people thought that he was going to be the second incoming of Hunter Henry. And unfortunately, injuries began to stockpile. Lack of production caught up to him. And he never was able to find his true form. Never was able to put together a solidified season to where people started to make that comparison of a future all-SEC player, somebody that could easily be a difference maker and your number 1 leading receiver. And so he transferred. And now a lot of people thought he was going to go to Oklahoma. Ties to the school, ties to the state. But no, he wants to come down to Ole Miss's offense and run stuff with Lane Kiffin, which to me says he's going to be pretty important. In fact, I would say he's probably going to be the second most important player for the personnel behind Caden Lee. Because of Austin Simmons, of course, is not what we're throwing in here. Good blocker. All-around solid receiving threat. Good overall route runner. And he's had an entire spring to kind of get acclimated to what Lane Kiffin wants in his tight ends. And we saw this a few years ago where Caden Prescorn kind of put himself on the map in several games where he wasn't tight end number 1, but he definitely had the makings of it. What if they end up just doing it? What if this year, instead, we watch as that tight end room explodes? And Daquan Wright still is a very good player, still has a ton of upside and potential, but Luke Haas came in for a reason. And he ends up every single game making that highlight grab. And he's moving the chains. And him and Austin Simmons are building a rapport. And they're turning into Batman and Robin, where you just know it's perfect. They're biscuits and gravy. They're spaghetti and meatballs. And it hits the right spot. And here comes Ole Miss, hightailing it into November undefeated. Or better yet, maybe with just with 1 loss and still in the college football playoff hunt. Tight end room outside of Eli Stowers is pretty wide open in the SEC. You could say Jack Andrews for Texas maybe is going to be that guy. Maybe one of the LSU transfers is going to be that guy. You could go with potentially somebody at Georgia because it's Georgia. But I look at what you got down in Oxford, Mississippi. I can tell you what, Lane Kiffin, he wants that tight end. He remembers how good a tight end was being utilized in his offense when he was at Alabama, when O.J. Howard was running the show. You got a good route runner. You got a good receiving threat. And you got a good dude that's going to make play after play after play. Just need a place to flourish. That's what it's going to take. I think that down in Oxford, Bott Hemingway Stadium on Saturdays, you're going to know who Luke Haas is. The country's going to know who Luke Haas is. He's going to be tight end number 1 in the SEC when all is said and done. Leading the conference in receptions, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, yards per play, chain mover, third down conversion, whatever stat line you want to come up with for the tight end position, that's going to be Luke Haas. Absolutely. Top of the ball, no questions asked. But you got to have him get the ball, which means bold prediction number 2. I think Austin Simmons is an all-SEC quarterback this year and will be the name that we talk about of all the newcomers at the highest level. So Austin Simmons, last season, when Jackson Dart went out, had to come in for a trailing Ole Miss team. A lot of people seem to forget about that. Georgia was leading in that game. And the dude easily could have just had 3 big plays and said, you know what, I'm going to call it. Hey, Jackson, get back out there, win this game for us. But that's not what we saw. We saw a cool, calm demeanor quarterback that made the right reads, that never felt unfazed, seemed to be gaining more confidence with each throw, looking down the field and connecting for big time gains with Caden Lee for 21 and another wide receiver for 11. And eventually leading that scoring drive that kind of set the tone for the rest of the game. That was it for him. It was a quick cup of coffee, and then he went back to being the backup quarterback because Jackson Dart wanted to play the hero. And well, he earned it at this point after 2.5 years in Oxford. But it felt like in that game, if Austin Simmons, who was not the quarterback that Georgia prepared for, played like that and played like that at a consistent basis, Ole Miss was going to win. And I truly believe that if that was the version that we saw, Ole Miss would have won by the same score, if not even more, because if you weren't preparing for 13. Well, now you are. And now he's had an entire offseason with no baseball to learn the ins and outs of being a leader, being the vocal presence, being the guy. No questions about, hey, we're having a quarterback competition. Lane didn't go out and add in a quarterback outside of the guy from Pitt State to be that starter. He added them in for depth purposes. Not like we saw a few seasons ago when they went to Oklahoma State and called Spencer Sanders to compete. No, they're saying right now, this is our guy. This is who we're buying stock into. This is who we think is going to be the best fit for our team. And I think he is. And I think that we're severely underselling him. I'm seeing lists right now that have him like at quarterback number 9 or number 10 or not even in the top 10 for the SEC. And I'm perplexed because of even in that small sample size, the athleticism, the hypertensiveness, all of the accolades, the arm strength, how he maneuvers behind the line of scrimmage, his ability to keep drives alive, his mobility to end up making plays outside the pocket and connecting downfield, and his relationship with Caden Lee, I think says that is at least a top 7 quarterback in the SEC going into this year, and it's untapped potential. So what if that untapped potential finally hits the roof and it explodes like an oil rig in Landman? And now we're talking about 4,000 passing yards. We're talking about 35 touchdowns. And it's the same stuff that we saw with Jackson Dart, that we have seen with Matt Corral, that we have seen with other quarterbacks that have played in Lane's system. And it just takes that next step forward. Lane said, and there's an article that's out by The Athletic talking about Austin Simmons, that there is some remnants of Tua Tagovailoa in him, but a bigger quarterback. So if he's bigger, he's stronger, and he's able to move the exact same way and deliver those clean strikes and feel like that he is on top of the world as QB1, that's the quarterback we need to be talking about. And that's not a shot at Arch Manning or to Ty Simpson or to Gunnar Stockton or Zach Calzada or anybody else that's making their debut. That's just the reality of the situation. A full offseason to be QB1, a full year to know that this is his team, and an entire unit to build around where the offense is predicated to his strengths. How are you stopping that? How are you slowing that down? Especially when you have a czar and Lane Kiffin who speaks quarterback pretty fluently, being his go-to guy, being that voice in his ear telling him what to do. I think he's going to be an all-SEC quarterback. I don't know if it'll be SEC first team. I don't know if it'll be third team. But by the time that we get to December and we're laying down all the votes and we see the teams be coming on out, you will see Austin Simmons' name on that list because he's going to finish top 5 in passing. He's going to finish top 5 in touchdowns. He's going to finish top 5 in completion percentage. And he's going to finish top 5 in passer rating. So you add all that together, really hard sell for me not to buy stock in him being that guy and really being the reason why Ole Miss has a shot of doing anything this year. Which brings me to bold prediction number 3. They're going to do a lot this year. I told you at the very beginning, nobody should be picking Ole Miss to do anything because of last season. That roster was built to win a title. That roster was built to go on a run in the postseason. This year, there's so many questions at wide receiver, on the defensive line, in the secondary. But it's Lane Kiffin. And Kiffin, in years where there are actual expectations to be met, seems to kind of crumble under the pressure. Yeah, you beat Georgia. Great game against Georgia. Why didn't you do that against Kentucky or LSU or Florida? And then you're in the playoff, and then this is a moot point. But you don't have expectations this year. No, it's just, hey, you go 8-4. But we'll take that out in Oxford. You're beloved here, Lane. And that's when he strikes. You look at their schedule, right? You've seen the pathway that they have. Georgia State, at Kentucky, Arkansas. Who knows what that roster is going to be. Tulane, and then you play LSU. And you get at least a little bit of breathing room before that LSU game. What if you at least go 4-1 in that stretch before the bye week? And then you play Washington State. And what if somehow you're the team that becomes a thorn in Kirby Smart's side? And that Georgia game last season in Oxford wasn't a fluke. That's the new norm. And you win that one. And you only have one loss going into the midway point of your season. with games against Oklahoma, South Carolina, the Citadel, Florida State, and Florida and Mississippi State. And that's your season. I think it happens. I'm going bold on this one. Bold prediction number 3 is that Lane Kiffin in a year where there are no expectations, where the roster is completely underwhelmed in terms of the national spotlight, where people are not expecting the Rebels to be a playoff team. They do it, and they go to the college football playoff. I don't know how. I don't know what game is going to be the one that slips on up. I don't know if it's going to be because of bad rosters from South Carolina, from Oklahoma, from LSU not meeting expectation, Florida taking a massive step back. I'm not sure. But a part of me says Lane Kiffin last season kind of figured that he had expectations. It was dead on arrival. Whether or not I believe in it, whether or not people outside believe in it, but it just felt like, again, with expectations, Lane's not going to touch that. But in a year where nobody is saying anything about Ole Miss, nothing. Hey, they go 8-4, we'll accept it. They go 9-3, we'll love it. They go 10-2, hell yeah. Just do what you got to do, Lane, this year and build for 2026. I think he does. I think he overexceeds. I think he gets at least 2 upset wins, probably against, I'll go Florida and Oklahoma. I think that he finds a way to get another win against a team that people are overhyping. Maybe it's going to be LSU. Maybe it's going to be South Carolina. Maybe it's going to be Georgia. But he wins 3 games, loses 2. They go 10-2. They're in the college football playoff. So there you go. You have an all SEC tight end and an All-American in Luke Haas. You got a future quarterback that's actually living up to expectations and surpassing Arch Manning and Austin Simmons. And then you have a quarterback former guy and a head coach that does all the things necessary in a year that nobody said anything about Ole Miss. Gets the job done. Pretty bold. But again, it's just the way Lane Kiffin likes it. Let me know in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts on Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss in 2025? What are your bold predictions? Like, review, hit subscribe. Make sure you're following us on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson. Check out all of our great work found at SECUnfiltered.com and go visit FANDUEL.com/SECU. Get started with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Until next time, folks, I am Cole Thompson. Rebel Nation. Austin Simmons is going to do it, isn't he? Later.